Well, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and especially Pat, we've broken this down into 3 categories. I'll be taking the first category of what was the vision and the mission, and how well was that explained, and how well did you hit on those. Carol will be actually looking at your stories and anecdotes and your gestures and just how you presented that. And then Mary's going to finish up with truly whether or not did you inspire us? Did you persuade us to change, if you will? Okay. So I'll start with that vision and mission. And as I was listening to you in the beginning, it was very evident that you came out and said that basically change is going to happen. And you talked about how exponentially it is going. And that was really good, because when I looked at the vision, it was that we as leaders need to lead people through change, if change is truly going to happen. One of the things I thought you could have done with that mission to really drive it home, you talked about how the cell phones have changed. Right. Perhaps even asked us, would we like to go back 20 years or think about our lives today without a cell phone? You know, a lot of us probably fought even getting a cell phone in the beginning, thinking, I don't want to have people have that much contact with me, be able to find me. And then just to think how our lives today would be different if we had not changed. And then really the mission and your whole speech was about how we plan that change, and really the people aspect through the ADCAR and the implementation of the change. And a couple of points for you. You could have done this maybe a little bit more in your introduction and a little bit more on the front side, is we as leaders, we are the people, because this is who you're actually speaking to, are the ones that are responsible for affecting that change or helping people get to that point. I really like the ADCAR approach. The one thing I would say is the way you presented it, it really seems like the people aspect is a step-by-step, where I think it's a lot more fluid than that. That a lot of those you start layering on as you get the awareness and you start working on that desire. You know, you start using some of the knowledge and building that back. And then you add in the ability, or basically the measuring of it, and just continuing to grow the desire and grow the awareness, and then the reinforcement. It's not like it all happens at the end. So really talking about, especially to a group of leaders, how they can layer that together to make everyone, you know, affect that change. Yeah. Because change takes a long time to finally get to that point you want to be. And I thought that would really help out. And I know this is probably a presentation that's more of a workshop and a half-day, full-day type of thing if you're speaking to a work group. But all in all, it was very good. It's a great way to affect change in others around us and help them and lead them through that. So thank you. Enjoyed it.
I'm going to address the sort of emotional and body language and so forth things. I'm going to count that opening exercise as an anecdote and talk about it. I liked the opening exercise. I thought that if you had been doing a 10-minute speech, it wouldn't have worked simply because it would have taken up too much time. But for a 20-minute speech, it was a good use of the time. That you did a lot to set the stage emotionally for people, to have them be ready. Then moving them or everyone around makes everyone unsettled, so that drives in a lot of the message about the unsettled. The change is unsettling, and you don't like it. But you also got engagement from people by asking their input. Because everyone feels a little discombobulated, you then did a lot of kind of reassuring people and doing this body language that says, in effect, yes, it's going to be okay, which is one of the messages that people always try to do when they're communicating change, that, there's change, and it's okay, as opposed to, there's change, and we're really upset about it, So that was good. You, with the other anecdote type things, I liked bringing in Bob, because that looked very spontaneous. And I went, okay, could she have known that Bob was going to be, well, maybe, you know, but because he's not someone who'd usually be here, it looked spontaneous for the, and, you know, good examples. So you know, even if you had thought it through all ahead of time and, oh, I can do that, it still looked fresh, which was good. You use a lot of gestures and body language, and I was thinking through, I think to a certain extent that when people use body language, they're more animated, that it helps make a connection with the audience. So that kind of went along with the reassuring, helping people relax after getting them all jittery by moving them around. Specific things, gestures, I saw that you talked about change your perspective, you did the gesture on your head, you did talking about changing from one thing to another, and from your point, right to left, and from ours, left to right, which is good because that's the way we read. And the chart, when you were talking about it, you pointed out things on it, which was good, so that you know your hands are moving. The one thing that I didn't like was I couldn't see the chart really clearly, so it was like I couldn't read it. But the things that you did and the body language all tied into a message of reassuring people about change.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, my fellow team members here, and Pat. Your title, change, was the only concept I had in my mind when you made change my chair. I thought, just like the world, they make us change, and then later they try to explain why we had to do it. And after hearing this workshop, thought, what causes us not to have this first and then do the change? Because I see this all the time in my whole life, daily. There is the change. So I thought, why doesn't my life have this chart first before I go into my change? Because it was fully described there. You did that very well as far as having exact points of those letters. Another thing we always do in life, because I thought her introduction talks about ad card. What's ad card? We use the initials, and people from other countries or from our own neighborhood don't always like just the initials. So it's good that you just didn't stay with the initials, you actually explained what those letters stood for. When you brought out the points of what the first 2 or 3, they were real concise. You had some stories and examples, but I felt that you trailed off with that effort in the last 2 or 3 parts of your knowledge, and then ability and reinforcement didn't have the same strength to them that the first 2 or 3 did. Mm-hmm. I also enjoyed that you did use the examples like they'd mentioned before, my evaluators. And then I thought, now wait a minute, I'm not at work more than 40 hours a week or 50, but there's all these other hours that I need to apply what you've done. So probably by taking some example from your home and saying how you applied this concept to a project in my own home or in my yard, or with my relationship, make it more personable on those hours that we aren't leaders, would have helped me get my pool table cleaned off so that Cliff Hines can come play pool. and I thought, well, that's there, but then I thought at work we've had these rods being a problem in the stock room, and I've had 4 top people in there, and they could come and hear your workshop. Maybe they'd get that problem solved with the rods being in the wrong place. And I thought, well, what did Pat really do that really made me learn something today? Well, first of all, your introduction, and then your enthusiasm. You really struggled at times. You'd start a sentence and then you'd kind of start another sentence, but then you really came back. You were really trying to get this point across to us. It wasn't just like I came here to give a speech. You really wanted us to realize, this amount of people, that this is how we go about change, no matter what it is in our country or in our own lives. You really had a desire to do that. And I really appreciated that, because you put all this effort into bringing what you've learned in the classroom, learned on this whole experience, and bring it here and hopefully get a little bit of that piece so we can ask you questions or give ourselves some thinking time to go about and do our life's change.
Comments there?
Yes, actually, very valuable, thank you very much. This is a concept that I've been studying for the last couple of months now, and it's really been a timely topic to speak with everyone in life. Number of people speak about change, and I think that this model works for me, but I think it also helps just clarify things that we can do as leaders. There is another portion of this that I really would like to develop further, and it would be the part where we could think of a change that we're trying to make or we'd like to see in others and kind of go through an exercise. So I think it has an ability to expand into a nice workshop, as you mentioned. And I haven't given this except to my other club once before, but I haven't given it to a change leadership team. I think that that'd be a good group to give it to because, well, that's what we're all studying. We're studying the change at the same time as we're helping people through it. So you all hit on some great ways to help me through this next year of being on this team. So.
Good. Well, a workshop would help you do more of the hows,
Yeah, I think you're right,
just
yeah.
the whats.
Yep.
Comments from the audience? This one.
Thank you, Mr. President, Toastmasters, and Pat. We're at work and going through inclusion and change exercises. We found as allies of change, there's one component. Well, we're all looking at what makes this thing tick. But we have focused in our group on how do we reach a tipping point. And my suggestion would be to look at those 5 components of that model and maybe take one at a time and see which one can impact that change more effectively and more expeditiously. That's what I'm seeing, and if you can answer that why, meaning all of us as leaders,
Right.
I think we can get more bang for our buck.
Right.
Pat, I thought you did exceptional as far as describing the basis of change. I go through this in the project engineering phases. What I would have liked to see prior to that would be maybe reasons why that change is needed. Maybe even the exercise you did, maybe you could actually give us reasons why we're not better in where we are, and then kind of convince us, and then let us make those changes whereby we have a buy-in right away that, wow, I shouldn't be sitting here. I'm better off here.
Right. Yeah, good point. That's the awareness phase.
Time for one more quick comment. Munish?
Yes, sir. One of the things which probably I missed and which I have missed most of the times when I read the books on change is what happens if change comes suddenly, you know. There's an earthquake, a change has happened, and now you have to live. So your life starts from there. Or probably what if there is, it like comes in like a thunderbolt, it just strikes you. Nobody talks about those, and I think so incorporating that can give a much more better emphasis to the audience, because sometimes change is going to come or not is going to come, it has already happened. So maybe taking that dimensional approach to that.
Thank you, Munish. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.